All right, I know I said that this week I'd be releasing the new part for Yishtola's cosplay, but unfortunately there's been some delay. In the meantime, I'm going to do a little overview of my commission, which is Darth Maul from Star Wars. I'm not very familiar with the franchise. I know it's quite unusual, but I had a lot of reference material that was sent to me and that I was able to find online. And in this case, it really had to be top notch. It had to be as screen accurate as possible because my client will be applying for the 501st Legion and he wants to get it approved. So obviously it needs to be as screen accurate as possible. So there was quite a bit of pressure on me to make this really I think we can start taking a look at what we got. So the first piece that I'm going to present is this kind of weird tabard that he wears at the front and the leather belt piece. I didn't make the leather belt piece. I was told that it was bought from a local leather worker. I will put the name of the person in question. The only thing that I did was I added some snaps at the back of the belt and some snaps on the tabard so that it could be snapped into place before putting on the belt. And I also adjusted the sizing a little bit because it was a little bit too big, but otherwise no modifications were done to the belt itself. The first piece that he's gonna have to wear is just the trousers. They're very simple trousers that I made. They have a zipper and a button up. I also did put an elastic in the waistband. I like doing that when possible because it makes the costume a little bit more versatile in terms of sizing. So if the person gains or loses a little bit of weight, the costume still fits. And when you spend this much money on a costume, I think it's always clever to make it as adjustable as possible. Since my male mannequin doesn't actually have any legs, I won't be able to kind of show you what that looks like on the mannequin. So we're gonna go ahead without it. So here's my weird little setup for today's mannequin. I only have a torso, so I had to kind of put it on top of other shenanigans to make it all work. So the first piece is essentially a tunic. To put it on, my client just needs to kind of get into it from over, just put your head in first. There's a little bit of an opening at the top, but it doesn't unzip thoroughly. Now the fun little detail is that it has a little placket underneath that with a few snaps. I wanted to minimize any use of zipper just because you can always see them a little bit. Even an invisible zipper will still have a little bit of a attachment for you to pull on it. Also, another fun little detail is that inside the collar you have another kind of some kind of improvised lining. The reason for that is because it's Darth Maul, the client's going to be wearing a lot of face makeup and makeup on the neck, and even though you can generally get it out of costumes, you want to minimize the rubbing of the two together. So to make the washing process easier, you can remove that lining piece and put it in the wash more easily without having to rewash the whole piece. I'm going to talk a little bit about just the design of the costumes in Star Wars. Even though I'm not a big Star Wars fan, I love the designs of a lot of the costumes. They're really, really interesting. They're really beautiful. A lot of it is inspired from traditional Japanese garments. But in this case, I find the neckline to me is more reminiscent of a traditional Indian garb for men. And I find that's just such a beautiful touch. It's just very regal in a way. But once you put it all together, you get that kind of sci-fi aesthetic, but very weirdly grounded at the same time. Anyways, I just find the costume designs in Star Wars are really good, and Darth Maul was a really, really good design overall and a wasted character in the movie franchise, in my opinion. Okay, so next, but most definitely not least, we have, if I'm not mistaken, it's called the Sith robe. So this one, I really like this piece. I find, again, in terms of design, it's a very interesting piece. So where to start with this one? So to put it on, you obviously just an opening at the front. Again, I used the under placket piece with a bunch of snaps to minimize the use of any kind of zipper. I really didn't want to have any zippers. And then for the rest, you have the flowing neck piece. There's also these weird little flaps that are sewn straight onto the jacket itself. And then my favorite detail for this one is the sleeves. They're kind of weirdly mutton sleevey. So there's quite a lot of volume throughout, but the bottom of the sleeve is pleated, and then just it ends up creating this extra volume at the top, which to me is very reminiscent of a mutton sleeve, which is again just such a fascinating combination of styles. I'm not joking when I say that I do find the designs really unique. I think that's probably something that, like the aesthetic of it, definitely something people really vibe with and kind of help the success of the franchise overall. So after you've put on those two pieces, that's when you would put on the belt with the tabard already attached to it. Again, just creating more layers. The whole thing is very monochromatic, but the layering and the different use of fabric is what is going to make the overall piece pop. I really highly recommend when you design or when you put together a costume that's very monochromatic to like play around with the different shades of that color or the different textures in that color that you can find, just to give it a bit more vibrancy and depth. And now the last and final piece would be the I'm not sure what they call the piece, but it's a cape. Darth Maul's cape is very unique though. I don't think many other characters or any other characters have quite this cape. This piece is very fascinating. So it's very much like a big cape with the big hood, very medieval in feel, but then you have these very interesting sleeves that are essentially really long extended kimono sleeves with like the slit opening on the side of the sleeve, and then the front panel had this depending on the reference, it was either pleating or gathering. I went with full pleating because I thought the pleating just gave it that really fascinating visual edge. But yes, I ended up going with the pleating because I just thought it was nicer than most of the gathering that I've seen. And I stitched them all in place. Like every single pleat is essentially stitched at the back so that it won't get undone over time. You still don't want to throw something like this like in the wash. You dry clean that stuff only because you want to keep those pleats in place. And to tie it up, in this case, I did not put a long row of snaps. I ended up putting a few hook and eyes in a few spots to keep it all in place. I also did want to add again a little bit more visual impact. So the lining of the hood and the sleeve is a little bit more lustrous and shiny, though not too much in my opinion, just to give it that visual edge overall. So yeah, that's the full costume. I'm really happy with how everything turned out. I'm gonna share some pictures here, like a little bit of a preview picture of what it looks like on the client. If ever he shares more pictures, I will try to share them or reshare them on Instagram or on my social media in general. So if you would like to see that, I would say go check out Instagram because that's where I'm most likely to share more pictures. I will also update you guys if ever he makes it into the 501st Legion. Fingers crossed he will. I don't think it'll be an issue. I think the costume turned out really nice, but I'll still keep you updated just in case. So yeah, that wraps up today's video. I promise you that next week will be Yostola's shirt. There's other pieces of Yostola that are coming along great too, so there's more videos, but I don't think everything will be out before FanFest. So post FanFest, keep an eye out. More videos to come and probably a vlog of that con because it should be quite something. So yeah, that wraps up today's video. Stick around if you want to. Give it a like, subscribe if you feel like it. And otherwise, have a nice life, I suppose. Bye!